Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Christine Pearl and I'm the Digital Community Manager here at Red Wine and Blue. I'm also the host of the Banned Book Club and I live in Buffalo, New York. I'm so glad you guys are all here to talk about banned books with us. Red Wine and Blue is a national community of 500,000 suburban women working together to defeat extremism and in our local communities. According to the American Library Association, in 2022, a record 2,500 unique titles were targeted for censorship, which is an increase of 38% from 2021. You're taking such an important step being here because we believe that knowledge is power, and we're so excited that you're all here to talk with us. Our selection for this month, for Pride Month, was Lawn Boy, and it was the 7th most challenged book from last year. And I'd like to introduce our Deputy Organizing Director, Ray, to talk a little bit about some upcoming events that we have here at Red Wine and Blue.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks for the warm welcome and the introduction. We are immensely happy for you all to be here today to discuss Lawn Boy. Happy Pride Month and happy Wednesday. We're so glad to be in community, and we have a number of community events, as you know. Thanks to everyone who attended our salon last night, the Zen Education Project. We were talking about the importance of teaching truth in U.S. history, and Lawn Boy is right along with that. And so we have a number of events in the next week. You can also visit our website, the events section, to find out more details or register, but I'm going to go through a few that we have going on in the next week or so. Tomorrow, Thursday, June 8th, I'm really excited about this topic. We're having an Ask Me Anything, or an AMA, a Gen X, yes, Generation X Gender Palooza. We're going to be figuring it all out together with Jess McIntosh. Many of you have heard from her before on comms and media, disinformation, and Jess will be sharing her own experiences navigating gender as a Gen Xer. On Saturday, we are highlighting an event, a day of action, Teach Truth Day of Action, that we're co-sponsoring along with the African American Policy Forum and the Zen Education Project. You can find events all over America. There are over 100 events that are happening throughout the United States, both in person at historic sites and virtually. So we encourage you to visit our social media or our events page to find more information about events near you on Saturday, June 10th. Also, next Tuesday, our salon series, we have salons every Tuesday. We'll have what you need to know about crisis pregnancy centers. I know we've all seen the billboards. We've all heard about them, and now more than ever since Roe fell over a year ago this month, we really want to educate ourselves most about what this means, particularly for our community, and what it means for Roe and abortion bans in your state. That's next Tuesday, June 13th. And then we'll round out next week, the 15th, with our troublemaker training, again with advocates for youth. And we'll be talking about sex ed in elementary school, myth versus reality. And so definitely visit the links in the chat to find out more details about how to register or learn about those events. Generally, we do try to record all of our sessions. Sometimes our speakers do not consent to recording, but once we have the video edited and approved, we will upload them to our YouTube, and you can definitely visit our YouTube page to see past events, of which we have dozens and dozens. So definitely be familiar. Thank you all for being here today. We look forward to having this conversation and having you at coming events in the future.
I also want to introduce our Banned Bookmobile. So this summer, Red Wine and Blue Banned Bookmobile is coming to communities in our target states, and they will be at events like Pride, farmers markets, community events like that in North Carolina, Ohio, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Here's a picture of one of our events in Michigan, and they will be giving out banned children's books, bookmarks, stickers, and information to kids and their parents about these banned books K through 5. And to expand this project, we want it to be national. We need to fundraise, and each kit costs about $800. So we want to be able to expand these banned bookmobiles everywhere that we can, because these books are being banned everywhere across the United States. So if you take a look at the chat, there will be a link to donate if you're able, and if you're not, please share it with your networks. And we are so grateful that you're all here, and we hope that we will see you at some of these events this summer. And so a big theme that we're noticing with a lot of these books is that they are banning books of stories of kids who need them the most, right? So that's why I'm so excited to introduce Drew. He is our director of operations at Red Wine and Blue. So he keeps the ship running at Red Wine and Blue. He helps us with pretty much everything. I don't know where we would be without him. And I'm so grateful that he agreed to speak to us today about his experience. He graduated magna cum laude from the George Washington University with a major in political communications and a minor in graphic design. And he recently obtained his master's degree in political management with a focus on nonprofit management from GW's School of Political Management. Congratulations, Drew. Happy recent graduation. He's originally from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and he is an outspoken conversion therapy survivor who lives in Washington, D.C. with his puppy Chloe, who may or may not make an appearance this evening. And I would like to introduce Drew so he can tell his story.
Hello, Christine, and everybody else joining the chat. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I'm super excited to talk about just the importance of elevating these stories and of allowing different students across the country to find themselves in a good book. My name is Drew Anstutz, and I'm the Director of Operations here at Red Wine and Blue. I help everybody on staff just kind of stay connected and know what's going on so that we can cause some good trouble across the country. I came to Red Wine and Blue in 2021 when I was a senior at GW and have since found my home here. Even though I'm not a suburban woman, I do definitely feel very much a part of this family, and I'm super glad to be here. So as Christine kind of alluded to, I was once one of those gay kids who was in school, in high school, trying to discover who I am. I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And as you can imagine, growing up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, as a gay kid kind of has its troubles. My parents were very heavily involved in the church. My dad was a pastor, and it was just kind of a given that if there was one bad thing you could do in life, it's be gay. I had a pretty rough coming out story, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. But really, I think it was the books and it was the community at my school that was able to help push me through and connect me to the resources that I need to ultimately survive conversion therapy. So I'm really excited to talk about that with you guys today.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your coming out story and how you relied on these books during that time?
Yes, definitely. So again, coming out for me, it was kind of challenging. I was 15 when I came out. It's kind of crazy to think about how young people are coming out these days, now that we're building a society that's a little bit more accepting, where at the same time, it's still quite challenging for a lot of people in a lot of areas. So I was 15 when I came out. I knew I was gay from a very young age. I remember even being like 4 or 5 and seeing like a commercial on TV. It was one of those workout commercials where they had like the side by side, like woman and man. And I was like, oh, that guy looks kind of cool. So, I mean, I kind of already knew that I was gay the whole time, but coming to terms with that was really difficult. And it wasn't until I was 15 that I met somebody and I fell in love, and I was all excited to tell my family about it, to tell my friends about it. And when I did, my whole world changed. I grew up having a very great relationship with my parents. I was always the good kid who never did anything wrong, got straight A's. They even said I might be a pastor one day. That ended up not coming to fruition. And from the moment I came out, like my parents, they just couldn't look at me. I don't think I talked to them for about a week until, after I came out. It was a pretty dark time for me. I was kind of shut out from the world. My parents withdrew me from school for a little bit. They took away my access to the outside world through like my phone, access to the internet. At the time, I was going to a high school where you had to have like iPads to turn in your homework assignments. I had to have like separate assignments and separate due dates, and everything was just very different for me in my sheltered life. My parents were just kind of trying to take control of everything and like really assess the situation. And this is where I think my story of conversion therapy kind of starts. The whole time while coming out, my parents said they were blindsided by it. I'm not entirely sure how they were blindsided by this. We can get into that later. My favorite color was pink growing up. I loved playing with dolls. I loved playing house, all of that type of stuff, but they were blindsided. And everybody that they were turning to in the church was saying, this is what you got to do. You got to show the tough love. You got to isolate, 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 and you have to crack down on this before it spreads further. So I had all access to the outside world taken away. Quickly after my freshman year ended, about a month after I came out, I no longer had my school friends to talk to, and I was seriously like alone without any access to the internet or ways of communicating with people. And that's kind of where my love of books kind of started, where I had to find alternative ways to entertain myself than scrolling on Instagram or Snapchat. And it was through these books that I would literally sneak in, either through trips to the library that I would like hide books under my shirt or in a bag or in a binder. Once school started in the new year, I would go hang out with my English school or my English teacher during lunch. And she would give me poems and she would give me books that I could read to try to see myself in a world that didn't seem to want me. And I think that that's why, advocating for these books to be available to students is so important, because when you're in that type of a situation and you don't see yourself anywhere else, you don't have access to talk to somebody who's in the community and really understand what you're going through. Reading about it from the firsthand perspective of a character, even fictitious, even if it has crazy turns and it's not all that realistic, just seeing yourself in some way represented can sometimes make or break your ability to fight through all of this. And conversion therapy for me, it was, a really dark time. My parents sent me to conversion therapy for a year and a half. There's multiple different types of conversion therapy. Sometimes people get sent there in the form of like a day camp. Sometimes it's an overnight camp. Mine wasn't like that. Mine was more of like a counselor's office. And I would basically go in on a weekly basis and we would just talk through how gay I was and what gay things I did that week. And even sometimes on a scale of 1 to 100, how gay I felt that week. And what they would do is they would in a very expert way kind of be able to talk about what you are probably thinking and what you are going through. And they'd say, you're probably questioning this about your life, or you're probably questioning this about your sexuality. And it would be accurate. And I would say, yeah, that's correct. That's correct. And then they would be able to say, well, see, actually what you're going through is this, and actually it's the devil speaking through you, and actually this is how you should be repenting and changing your ways. So it was a lot of mind tricks, and it was very demoralizing. It would be really hard to kind of pick myself up after that and to continue on with school, to continue on with my teenage life, which, I mean, if we're just going to be real, living as a teenager in America in the 21st century is super hard. If you're gay, it makes it even harder. And trying to navigate all of that without the support of parents, without the support of really anybody except these characters in these books, it really just goes to show how make or break it can be for people to have access to these. So my life kind of continued like that for a year and a half, where I was every week going in and we'd talk about how wrong I was for being gay, and they would try to change me. And spoiler alert, it didn't necessarily work. But it was a really tough period of life. And, there was lots of different suicide attempts and some really rough patches. But I think it was through seeing myself in these books that I was able to see, like, okay, there's a world outside of the world that I live in. And I don't really know what my point was, where I said, what, something's got to change. But I just kind of felt down and thought, like, what, I can take control of the situation and I can build a life for myself that I'm going to be grateful for. And I realized that there'd be two ways of doing that. By continuing to get good grades, I was still the straight A student, but I was kind of just aimlessly going to school as a way to get away from my parents. Still getting the good grades, but then I started to realize, like, I really need to work on what my next step is, getting into a college and getting away from here. And then in order to do that, in order to go to a place that would be more accepting, that involves a lot of money. Colleges are very expensive, and colleges in accepting areas like big cities are even more expensive. So I got a job at Aeropostale in the mall. and I was selling skinny jeans to people, and I was living the good life, because it was another way for me to get away from my household, get away from what I was going through, and to earn some money. And I was making $7.25 an hour, saving that up. And by the time I left for college, which I got into GW, which was a very exciting moment. By the time I went to GW, I had $17,000 in the bank from working my minimum wage job. So that kind of goes to show you how much time I was spending trying to work towards this. And over the course of all of this, my relationship with my parents was rocky. It went from outright, I didn't talk to them for a couple years, to a transition to this don't ask, don't tell type of situation, where as long as I didn't talk about the fact that I was gay, and as long as I didn't go on dates or appear gay or sound gay or anything around them, we'd be good. And I was starting to redevelop that relationship with them. They were excited about my academic accomplishments, and they were excited about the fact that I was doing all of this work. But we couldn't really relate on that deeper emotional level. With time, with lots and lots of time, we've worked on that. I think the last couple of years we've made great strides, and now I had a recent conversation with them last year where I just kind of said, look, I'm entering this new phase of my life. I hope that you all can be with me in that new phase, but if not, I mean, this is kind of where I have to draw my line. And thankfully they said, we didn't realize it was this hard on you these last few years, and we want to do better. There was lots of tears involved with this conversation on both sides, and we kind of got to a better place. So I think just in general with my story, I hope that it kind of shows you that one, as much progress as we think that we've made, there's still a lot of work to do. And in a lot of areas across our country, there's actually been a deep regression, that in the year 2015, 2016, there was this high schooler named Drew that was going through conversion therapy and told that there were serious things wrong with him, and that if he couldn't come to terms with things and fix things and start liking women, that there would be a life in hell awaiting me. So there's those different areas in our world that still exist. There's still a lot of work to do. But as a point of hope, a lot of people in the gay community, we are some of the most resilient people that you'll ever meet. It takes a lot of work to break us down, and we have a very strong community that's ready to uplift people and get people where they need to be. So lots of work ahead, but also lots of really good moments as well. I know the chat has kind of been going off. I don't know if there's any questions to hit on here.
There are, but a lot of support for you and how inspiring you are. So thank you for sharing your story with us, Drew. Let's see. One of the good ones that I saw was that I think her name, Robin, said that her school board has been inundated with evangelicals who are worried about these books sneaking in, and they feel like it's an overreach. Do you have any experience in changing hearts and minds, or any advice? And she also says that she comes from a strong evangelical background as well.
Yeah, and just for context, mine was Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, LCMS Lutheran, which is a very, very conservative evangelical church. So the school that I went to, it was actually an LCMS school. So I did K-12 Lutheran education. That's kind of why my story was as hard as it was, is that I was getting it at home, I was getting it at church, and I was getting it at school. And I noticed right away when I came out, I was 15 at the time, wrapping up my freshman year. The students were cool with it. And this is at a conservative environment. The next year in 2016, we held a mock election, and out of the 750 people that went to our high school, 36 of us voted for Hillary Clinton. So just to give you like a snapshot of what the school was, it was a very conservative school. And yet, I mean, the kids are all right. Students, even the most, row of jocks were supportive of me and would stand up for me if anybody said anything. It was just the administration, and it was some of the teachers and people who were heavily invested in either the religion department or were just conservative otherwise, who kind of had it out for me. And I think some of them also were blindsided by this, which, I mean, like, I'm wearing skinny shorts. I don't know why people were overly confused by this, but they were. And I think when I came into that high school, people were excited to have me as a leader. I was promoted to all these different positions of leadership across the school, and I was supposed to be this bridge between the administration and the students, and they were happy to have me. And then I came out, and their whole world, I think, was rocked almost as much as mine, if not more, of like, this is a responsible kid who has it all together, who also is leading this awful life, and I don't know how to navigate that. And I think there was a benefit for me coming in, not out, building that relationship, having them see me as a person who's able to achieve what I want to achieve and work as hard as I want to work, and not just be limited by that label of being gay, which then in that world means being bad. So I think I had the benefit, the added benefit of coming into this environment as a neutral actor and then having that gay label added afterwards. I say all of this in this very long-winded response to the question to say that when I came in, the staff, the administration was entirely against me. And by the time I left that high school 3 years later, I was a very well-respected person in the student body. There was actually this one story that's kind of cool that I'll wrap with, where every year for seniors during the last chapel of the year, during the last week of the school year, the class president would get to go up and speak, and would get to do a reflection on the time that they spent in the last 4 years and what's down the road ahead. As class president, that was just what I was expected to do. There was not really much discussion about it until 2 days before the event, when it was time for me to submit my speech to be reviewed. I went to submit it and was told that a discussion was had with the administration the week prior to decide that actually I couldn't speak, that it would be confusing for those in the audience to see somebody on the stage, to watch me speak, and then to have an internal dialogue of, well, should I accept gay people? Is this okay? And they said that I wouldn't be able to have my voice heard and that they wouldn't be paying attention to what I'm saying, because instead they'll just see this gay person on the stage and be overwhelmed by their internal conflict of whether or not that's okay. So there was also donors that were potentially going to donate money to build a new school, and the donors got involved and said that if I was allowed to speak, that they would withhold their donation. Lots of internal politics involved. It was determined that I couldn't speak. And then, with really out me doing anything, teachers at the school rose up, all got together. When I left school halfway through the day, just with how overwhelmed I was by this decision, while I was gone, teachers banded together, some teachers that I would never have guessed to be on our side about any issues, banded together, brought hundreds of kids into their classroom, were writing notes to me saying, how much they support me and how much they value me, how much, they wish I could have spoken, all signed petitions to send to the administration to say that they want me to speak, etc. Long story short, they ended up not letting me speak still. They ended up having someone else do the speech, even though I was the class president. I had my speech ready to go when chapel ended and we were all leaving to go back to our class. I hit send on Twitter and put out my speech. And then the really heartwarming thing is, in every single class, teachers stopped what they were doing for that next period, put my tweet on the projector, and then for like 10 or 15 minutes had everybody read it together as a class, and then discuss what was being said and discuss whether they think it's okay for me to be silenced in that way. Again, not something that I advocated for, not something that, with my rainbow flag flying high was trying to do. It was because I was building those relationships with people and helping them see that gay people are people too, and gay people have worth. So yes, it is possible to change hearts and minds. I think it's really just connecting on that human level, and helping people see that we're more than just someone waving a rainbow flag. We are happy, bubbly, bright, loving people.
Thank you for sharing your story, Drew. There's a lot of support in the chat, so I hope you have some time to read it.
I'm going to download it.
Several people want you to write a book, and I am right there with them. I will gladly take the first round of edits if that's something you want me to do. Let's see. There was one last question I thought would be good to end with. How can we support you? I'm shopping at supportive communities and buying products that have supported this community. However, they cave to the pressure of the bigots. What should we do and how can we help?
That's such a good question. I think the main thing, two things. One is, as hard as it is, and I really struggle with this, if I'm being honest, is when you're with family, small groups, larger groups, what have you, when Thanksgiving table, Christmas table, whatever holidays you celebrate, maybe not in front of everybody around the table, but after something is said, attacking the gay community, attacking any other community, it's so important afterwards to just grab them, pull them aside, not in a judgmental way, not in a how dare you say this. It's easy to get enraged, it's easy to lash out, but really just like a hey, do you realize what you said and the impact that that might have? If all of us do this with all the people in our lives, that's how we're going to really change these hearts and minds. So I think one is challenging the disinformation, and doing it in a loving, approachable, connecting way. And then two, I think just if you know someone who's LGBTQ in your life, just like reach out, say happy Pride, see how they're doing, especially if they're young, especially if they're on their road to coming out. Just let them know that you're around for them, and that especially in light of the different things going on, that if anything comes up, you're in their corner. You never know when someone's going through something, how alone they might feel, even if they present as super happy. So just knowing that someone's out there fighting for you, that means everything. The reason why I work here at Red Wine and Blue, and the reason why I stay working here at Red Wine and Blue, is just seeing all the work that the organizers do day in and day out, going to school board meetings, fighting on my behalf, fighting on the behalf of all the little Drews that exist out in the world. If I would have had someone like that in my school, that would have been life-changing for me to see. So even if you go to one of these events and you don't hear anything about it, know that there is a gay kid somewhere who's just so eternally grateful for you showing up and demanding change. And yes, a book is coming. A book is coming. Don't worry.
Well, let us know and we will do advanced reader copies for book club. I know the
Yes.
person that picks the book. So I can get you in. Thank you, Drew, so much for sharing your story. We love you so much. Everybody in the chat loves you. So I think you're the new most popular person at RWB right now. So